Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Nick, your host of On the Scene with Martini. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, you are the scene. Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick, On the Scene with Martini. Today I got Sen from Soulblind. How you doing, Sen?
What's up, Nick? How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Should be pretty cool.
So, before getting into like hardcore and punk, what were kind of some like musicians or like a way that you got into music prior to that, like at a young age?
I guess when I was super young, some first experiences were just like hearing music my parents played in the car. Uh, they listened to a lot of like 60s and 70s oldies, like Motown stuff. Also, flip side, a lot of classic rock. Just like classics from that era. Slowly got into like 80s more, heavy metal stuff. I guess that's like first intro and how I got like an ear for like what I like, and definitely like a lot of pop oriented stuff, nothing like too avant-garde or crazy like that. But and then when I got a little older, I started hearing a lot of stuff on like the Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack, as most people my age probably have.
I get that answer a
That,
lot.
yeah, that exposed me to a lot of like heavier things or like more punk leaning, like and just like more of the current time hard music as well, like late 90s, um throughout like that whole genre, or throughout that whole decade rather. uh I think that more transitioned into, I'm watching like VH1 and MTV more around that time. I'm like listening to, I like got exposed to like Nirvana and grunge like through stuff like that. I remember watching like VH1 had these like different um documentary things of like different eras. I remember specifically like watching a grunge one. Um I slowly just started discovering those kind of bands. I think like I was always listening to the radio that had like current songs as well, just like current pop. And then like at the time, a current pop station was also playing like Blink-182 songs. So we're getting that side of things because it's like it was so popular and in the grand scheme that like, you could hear an NSYNC song and then it goes right into a Blink-182 song. So like now we think of that as like super different, but at the time I feel like it was just all ingrained in the same like era of music. Um, I guess I started developing a further taste. It's more defined uh, when like some friends would give me like blank CDs of certain bands. Like I remember getting a blank CD or a burned CD of a System of a Down self-titled record. I remember hearing a burned CD of Iowa by Slipknot. That was more the intro to like an aggressive, harder metal style. Like one of the first times I heard screaming on record, and I was like very drawn to it. I think it like set me up to like a lot of interests that I have now. But that's like kind of my whole origin of
I
of
gotcha.
music consumption, and just like whatever was popular on the radio. And this time is around like 2004 or five that I'm talking about for like getting into like heavier styles of music. And at the time, um whatever popular songs were on the radio, I'm at the time I'm loving like R&B and hip hop, and just discovering these styles that I wasn't exposed to like earlier on and through like what like my parents were listening to.
So like going into like alternative music then, did you kind of have like a phase where like you went into like New Order, The Cure, or did you kind of just keep going heavy from like then on?
Honestly, I'm not a huge like post-punky style. Like I don't love the Smiths, I don't love the Cure. I'm not huge on those bands specifically. And honestly, I wasn't really exposed. I'm sure I was like here and there, like a song or two, but wasn't really exposed to it until I would say high school. Um, for better or for worse, I would see like the Smiths on like Tumblr all the time and like shit like that. And I was like, I don't know, that like I never really gravitated that way, I guess.
Okay.
It was I like a lot of the 90s British stuff like Stone Roses and Oasis and things like that, but not too big on the 80s.
So like what was like that first band hardcore wise that you listened to that like really piqued your interest in the genre?
It was definitely Hatebreed. I had a friend who I guess this is around the same time, like 2004 or five. He had a Zune, actually, not even an iPod. It was a
A
super early
Zune.
micro. Yeah, it was a Microsoft version of an iPod. It was called a Zune.
Okay.
Didn't last, but I remember he had that, and it was like showing me stuff. I remember there was like Mudvayne on it. There's like um, As They Lay Dying. There's more like metal stuff, but then Hatebreed was at the time crossing over into that world with the Perseverance record. And I remember hearing I Will Be Heard and like Destroy Everything. And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I liked it a lot, but again, it was just kind of mixed in with all those other bands. Didn't really identify it as whatever hardcore was until a little later. But that was definitely my first exposure, and I always like kept the name because I mean that the name is crazy. Like you're a young kid, you're like, this sounds nuts, you know. Um, love the music, and furthermore, the first proper hardcore show that I went to was a Hatebreed show, I think in 2010, and it's a holiday show. They used to do this fest called Stillborn Fest. That was like it's only like six bands, but it they did like a holiday series of shows. Sometimes they would do it in Connecticut and in Poughkeepsie, my hometown, Poughkeepsie, New York. And that year it was Hatebreed, 4 Year Strong, Trapped Under Ice, and Polar Bear Club, I think.
It's like a lineup.
Um, yeah, it's all over the place, but it worked. And I remember I did not know Trapped Under Ice at the time, but I remember watching it, and I don't know. I had no idea what I was watching. It was just so crazy. I remember I didn't even know what to call it. I was like, what is this like thrashy like metal like I didn't know like a certain tag or title to hit it with, but I just remember being like affected by that. I was like, damn, this is crazy. And then obviously Hatebreed was awesome. And at the time I even liked 4 Year Strong. So I was like kind of just all in for the greater experience of it. And it exposed me to like a more like a younger band like Trapped Under Ice like actually grinding it at the time versus like Hatebreed's already what they are at that moment, like they're already a pretty big band, but it exposed me to like a younger band that was still like at it and not like crossed into like a metal world like a Hatebreed was.
Yeah. So at that point in time, were you playing guitar then? And like kind of doing your own thing, like writing songs or just singing it all?
Honestly, no. I always had friends that were doing local bands, and I was always going to shows and just like kind of hanging out all the time and not really. I always had ambitions too and wanted to. I remember trying to play guitar in middle school. It didn't really stick, and then um, always wanted to be a singer, just and just like yell at a band once that was more the lane. Um, just never had an opportunity or even like the confidence to do it until I did get an opportunity, I guess, but it took a little while. I think it was like 2014 was the first time, but overall, I just this was a show goer, and just like had always had friends in bands and stuff, but I never did anything until a little later.
When you were so Soulblind probably wasn't your first project then?
Yeah, we my first band with two out of three members of um so it's three out of four members of Soulblind were in this other band. it's like a hardcore like metalcore style band called God of Wine, and we played a handful of shows. Like we played a lot locally. We didn't really get out too much, but that was I think 2014 and 2015.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know, we just dropped a demo. We didn't do much with it, but it was just to play locally and be a cool opener on some other like out of town bands coming in. We used to always have like a lot of Western Mass and Connecticut bands play and Poughkeepsie and we played like a Vane show once when they were like super young. Um, I don't know, just didn't do much, but and I was like yelling in the band. But it set us up to uh to kind of further um do a different kind of sound that we like low-key hinted on that demo a little bit. We had like one song that was semi in Soul Blind Realm, but overall it was a lot different. So we kind of like that band stopped and we kind of regrouped, uh got another member and kind of started Soul Blind I think in 2017.
I was gonna ask, was that like, w did you guys know when you guys like initially broke up that you guys were gonna get back together at some point just with a different sound, or was it you possibly were gonna go somewhere else and try a different endeavor?
Um, I think we always wanted to do a project with this different sound. I guess at the time we didn't really have a plan or like a path that we wanted to directly take. I think it took like a year in between or so, but I don't know, still wanted to make music with like Finn and Justin are the two guitar players and Soul Blind. We were just gathering pieces of different demos and attacking different styles. Like I was gonna sing instead of yell, and that was like just a hurdle I had to learn and stuff like that. So it just like slowly came together.
Did you have like any like formal teaching, or was it kind of just you training your own voice when you could with like videos and however else you do?
I just went for it. I don't know. I
For
like there's you just sing in the car, you're
yeah.
you know, stuff like that. I also never played bass until Soul Blind, so not only am I learning the in and outs of like the range of my voice, I'm also learning how to play bass at the time and doing both at the same time was, a challenge in and of itself because I'm so intro to both.
Did you
But
want to do that, or was it kind of just hard to find
it,
that
it
fifth
was
member?
it was out of necessity because we were like, all right, maybe down the line, we'll expand and do this, but then for now we're practicing these songs just like more so getting the bones of everything together, like the skeletons of each song, and I'm just playing root notes and just filling out the room a little bit in a practice space just to like get a vibe for it, and then it just transitioned to us just doing it all together. Obviously, we didn't have as much energy, and I was kind of like a statue because I'm doing an instrument and singing for the first time. It was a lot to learn for sure, but I don't know. It was fun and I like doing it now.
Do you ever foresee yourself getting that fifth member?
Yeah, I mean we've talked about it for sure, but I don't know when the time is right. It's like I've I feel so comfortable with the bass as well. Uh, and I don't know. It would just be a different thing. I'm not opposed. It's like something that we'd have to. It's not so much like bringing in a fifth member is the deterrent. It's just like what are what does that look like? Like
Mm,
I'm more comfortable behind the bass. I think that's like a nice like thing to have. Do we even have like enough vocals where a standalone vocalist is like worth it? I don't know. It's a lot of factors, but
I gotcha.
um, you never know.
I feel like too, like I was talking to yes, this was yesterday. I recorded with George Hirsch of Blacklisted, and he was saying like playing and singing too, like he doesn't play and sing, but he writes the riffs. So like him like
Mhm.
knowing the guitars and the bass, I feel like it'd be a huge change for you to transition to just singing. Like I don't know if
Yeah,
that, especially because you've been doing it for how long now? Like what, 7, almost 8 years?
yeah, yeah.
So it definitely
I
would
mean,
definitely be a challenge.
yeah, I think it's nice to have that as well. When writing, it is nice to because like we're all collaborative when we write, so you know, all four members would write a guitar riff, so it's almost like sometimes I find it easier if I'm writing the structure of the song or like having the rhythm of the riff, like if it's coming from a place of where I'm coming from, then it's almost easier for me to hear a vocal other than having one of the guitar players or drummer or something. Their mind is coming up with this riff, and now I have to tap into that like almost rhythm and seeing where they're coming from to then create a vocal melody.
Hmm.
So I think that's a challenge for me. That's like a good challenge, I think, because it's nice when I'm coming up with everything and it's like almost ingrained in me to be like, hey, maybe I switch to this note because a vocal melody would sound better this way. Meanwhile, if there's already a structured out riff that someone else has, I almost have to adapt to what they're doing. So I think that's like a cool challenge too, but I enjoy it.
So like you guys put out Willpower in 2018, I think.
Yeah.
So like what this I don't know that's the best way to phrase this, but so like that was an EP. I think it was like what, 5 songs, 6 songs.
Yeah.
What was like I don't want to say like what took so long, but what made you guys wait so long to put out Feel It All Around? Because that was at 2022. I feel like 4 years is a big gap for an EP to a album.
Yeah. Well, obviously are we didn't really have a plan, I guess. We weren't even thinking we would have a label back us to write a LP like and
Hmm.
then like have a pro recording because like we did the EP in like our homie's attic like makeshift studio, um and we're just didn't even think any other greater things were possible past that. So I guess at that time we're not really following like a certain path of like, all right, you do the EP, then you tour, and then you do, it
Yeah.
was just kind of like not accessible or like in the cards. But we just kept on playing around the Northeast and kind of grinding and then we put out like a smaller EP of 3 songs with somebody else recording it that still wasn't like this grandiose level, I guess.
Hmm.
So it was a slow grind, and then at the time, I think our plan was to record in 2020, and then at the time, like early 2020, we had been picking up a lot of steam. We got like our first like tour offer. We got like these shows in Texas we were gonna do, like just like really getting out there and like just having more and more people be interested. But the pandemic just like fucked things up and delayed a lot of things. So I think we at least got delayed a full year in recording, maybe even more. And then it took a whole year after recording for it to come out, just putting puzzle pieces together and trying to film a video, this and that, and just making sure everything's like locked and loaded. So I think mainly the pandemic added a lot of years, I would say, just
Hmm.
because we didn't want to put out a record when we couldn't play shows and there
That's
wasn't a lot
fair.
going on. So I think that's the main reason, and just like the initial EP, we didn't have like a structure to follow, like post that.
Did you guys have like songs that you knew going into the album were gonna make it? Like there's always like that 1 or 2 songs from the EP that everyone loves, but it doesn't fit. Was there anything
Uh,
like that?
I definitely, I think, I mean, for the LP, we went in having like, I think like 23 songs or something, and then
Really?
we put out, well, because of how much time we had leading up
Yeah.
to it, and like we wrote some of them 4 years prior that we even put out an EP in between that period of time, but we held on to the one song because we were like, oh, this should stay for the album or whatever, you know?
Hmm.
So we just had a huge amount of songs and we had to like narrow that down, and that's always hard, obviously. But I think that also just creates a better uh, body of work if instead of writing 11 songs and all 11 are making it, you're creating or you're recording the best of that lump sum. So I think that that helps with like quality control, I guess. But it is hard to narrow it down.
What was you're saying how like you kind of went from a makeshift attic to I presume for Feel It All Around you guys were like recording in a studio with an engineer. Um, what was there like a difference in terms of like how you guys approached it? Like was there a lot of input from the engineer or was it kind of you guys still doing your own thing?
There's definitely input. For Feel It All Around, we did the record with Will Yip in Pennsylvania, and
Shout out Will.
yeah, he's like prolific, and it was really cool to work with him, and he just like recorded a lot of our favorite bands and stuff. So that like is what drew us in, and also he's just like a definitely a hands-on producer. Like we spent, I think, a whole week just playing the songs in a live room, and we're just like fleshing through parts and maybe there's a few vocal parts I didn't even have yet. I'm like writing things with him as well. So he was definitely hands-on, more so producer, less like I'm just press and record to whatever you want to do, you know?
Hmm.
And I think that that was helpful. We hadn't done a lot of that really, and especially with like a big lump sum that we're trying to make cohesive and kind of like a very thought out project. It's nice to have where you basically have like a fifth member to either be a deciding factor on decisions or like have like this outside source of like here's an idea, you know, like and then we could like hash that out if we want to go with that or not, or like just have a general collaborative process. I think that's nice. Um, and it was fun to do, but it was a lot different than, you know, the homie in the attic, you know.
Yeah. I I know if I was a frontman, and this is probably not uncommon, people just don't want to say it, like I would want a ton of control. Was it hard hearing like from an outside source like, Will, okay, this needs to be changed? Like, was there something that like you didn't want to change, but you knew that it probably should have been?
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's the struggle of it because, like I said before, the one song we had for 4 years and we didn't really alter it for those 4 years. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, now, you know, what if we did this like this or whatever? It's hard to let go of that. And there's a phrase called demo-itis that people get where you're so in love with the demo, you can't like change your mind when it gets to, you know, this like pre-recording process, which is definitely a hard hurdle to get over, but sometimes it's for the best, sometimes you don't think it's good. And because also you have to, instead of letting it sit and marinate, you have to kind of make a decision quickly because we were only in there for 3 weeks. It takes 2 weeks to record everything. So like this 1 week of pre-production, we had to decide like, you know, huge decisions sometimes. And I think that's a part of it that's a little tricky because you don't have too much time to let it sit overnight and kind of like digest it a little bit. So that's tricky for sure. But at the same time, a lot of the ideas were good because, you know, you have a good relationship with your producer and you want to take whatever they say with you know, a lot of respect and hear it out. And then at the end of the day, you do what you feel is best. And it's a tricky slope to navigate, but it's good to have ultimately.
What was the difference between like recording Red Sky Morning and then Feel It All Around, just in terms of did you guys want to go for like a different tone or a different kind of way to showcase Soulblind there?
I guess the overall, I mean, so we had two different people record both albums. We went to John Markson and Adam Chikachi, and we had done an EP with both of them before Feel It All Around, I think like 2021, but it was just like three songs. Didn't really have a lot of time with them. Um, I think overall we had a, we stayed friends with both of them and kind of wanted to explore a different method and trying to hone in on different things that we didn't get to necessarily. I think a lot of it is going into your first LP, you're a little, scatterbrained. You don't really know how to tackle it. It's a lot going on. It's um, just trying to, everyone's so headstrong on certain things. It's like, oh, it's our big first debut. You got to like do things a certain way. And second time around, you're a little more focused. You're like, all right, I didn't like this part of the process last time. Let's like re refine that, or we're a little more like dialed into the sound we want. Or you know, like I said before, the first LP was 4 years worth of songs, and then this last LP is only like 2 years. Or a lot of this stuff we wrote like pretty a couple months before we started recording it, so it's like super fresh and a little more dialed into the exact method of sound that we want. So I think that was the main difference of just like being prepared, having a little more focus on what we want to do through just experience too, and playing a lot more shows, seeing what resonates with people, seeing, we have a mix of heavier songs, we have a lot of lighter songs, like what translates better in a live setting. I think we kind of wanted to emulate that on Red Sky Morning, our second one, just to try to have a better live experience for the songs and kind of write toward that and be a little heavier. And because we obviously just feed off of uh, live reaction and things that we want to hear too, and
Yeah.
what's fun for us to play versus what goes off live. So I think we had all these things like kind of coming together, and I wanted to try doing an LP with John and Adam, and um it was a different kind of experience. We like stayed in the studio for 3 weeks. We like slept there. There's like these like little rooms that they have in this farm studio called the Animal Farm and in Jersey. And we kind of just like lived in the studio, lived in the songs. We didn't have like it's like on a remote farm. You're kind of like outside from all activity in the world, so you kind of like hone in a little bit. And I don't know, it was a fun process.
Did you guys have a song like early on in Soulblind that you didn't know, sorry, that you didn't know would translate well live or like you didn't expect to do as well as it did?
Um, I mean, yeah, it's definitely happened. I feel like we're usually like on the same page of what we want, like say like the singles to be or something, or like something that we try to directly push because we all kind of and honestly we do play, and we have most of the time we've played songs live first before we record them, or before we even put them out, even after they're recorded. We'll always like we'll be like, oh, this one is heavy. Let's try this out on this tour and see how it goes over. And I feel like that's influenced our decisions of what songs to highlight as well. Just seeing, before the song's out, how it reacts live, because that's like a good way to get like a survey of that almost. Um, I I have had some surprises for sure, just like more so of just like what people have told me. They'd be like, "Oh, I really like this one," or I feel like that's the best on the record or something, and it might be my least favorite. I don't know. But that's like the beauty of it. It's like something for everybody.
Do you have a song that on like Feel It All Around or Red Sky Morning that like you don't like, but like everyone else did that you just want like you had to put it out?
Not on this last one, but on the first one for sure. But hey, whatever. It's
It
it, it's a
happens.
group effort, so
Yeah.
I'm never tripping. You like say your piece on something, and it's ultimately, we don't have like a any one person that has more say in our band, so it's kind of just, if it's 3 out of 4, then that's it. And that's why you're a group of people. You don't want to have like this. Um, I mean, a lot of bands operate like that, where it's just one guy making all the decisions, and that's cool, and sometimes that works. But we never started like that. We just I don't know. We like being like a group decision process.
Going back to like when you guys first started, and I guess post COVID is probably when you guys started like really touring with Soulblind. What was like like a story or something that happened that you were like, is this gonna happen every time? Like touring obviously is a lot harder in the beginning of a band.
Yeah. So like a bad thing you're saying?
Yeah, or like a hiccup that like like I don't know, you said you listened to the Herald one, which I don't want to say it. These was a little graphic, but like with his it was like about like t-shirts and stuff and not have like stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Um, I guess like uh, you know, I think I mean, just I don't know what you could do to prevent this specifically, but I'm always like a little shook about just the sheer amount of driving you do while touring and just hearing horror stories of people getting into van accidents and like stuff like that. Or like on this last tour we just did in the fall, I literally had to drive like what would have been a 3 hour drive turned into 9 hours because it was snowing in Iowa to Wisconsin. And it's
Jeez.
literally like I'm driving on like a ski slope. There's like tractor trailers passing me, like going 50 just because I'm like chilling, doing 25, 30 or whatever. And I'm like, damn, one wrong move and we're all just, cooked. But that's the main thing that I don't really have a way to solve unless you're gonna fly to every show, which is not feasible. So
Yeah, and kind of crazy.
that shit's definitely something that I always am weary of, but I never don't really know how to prevent it, you know? You kind of just gotta go for it.
You did a lot of the early like screen printing and stuff, right, for Soulblind? Was that something
Yeah.
that you had experience with, or was that just another way that you guys had to do, like it was cheaper to do it for yourself?
Not I guess not only cheaper, but just for us to experiment as well. I learned it for that reason, just to like instead of having, when you order from a screen printing place, you can't just be like, hey, can you make like one of these? And then I mean, you can definitely do that. It just gets like really expensive where you're usually better off like ordering at least 30 or whatever it is of like a certain style to like make it financially worth it. And especially at the beginning, we're putting all our own money into this, so it's a little harder to like try things out and get a better feel for things. So we used to just have one design and then we'd print it on like many different things. Like we would have different colored t-shirts. We would print like one design on like different kinds of hoodies, and like we would like thrift these pants and like put our design like all on one pant leg and just like kind of like trying things out. And we would have like a section where it's like standard merch that we get like at a print shop, and then we'd have like this rack of kind of like it was either thrifted things or like cheap blanks that we would just like be experimenting on and just like trying different things out. We'd have like button ups or like different kind of hoodies and like hats and stuff like that. So I think it was cool for experimentation and just making like a more custom like one of one like merch thing to make things a little more special. And plus I was just like interested in it at the time, like screen printing, and at the time I had a lot more space to do that. Now I'm in a tiny New York City apartment and don't really have a lot of space or like the ability to do that as much anymore. But I remember the last big thing we did was there was like these certain ringer blanks that I remember this screen printing shop like either told me they couldn't get or they had to get like a certain other style, and I was just like doing my own research. I was like, oh, well, I could get these for for $3, whatever it is. I got like 300 of them, I remember. And before we did a our first full US tour with Drug Church in 2022, I spent like 4 days in my living room just like screen printing everything by hand, and kind of out of necessity to get that better price point, because we did like a full order with the screen printing shop for other stuff, but then we just had this other one that was a little more, that not only special and more hands-on that we did them, but it was more so just like, oh, I can get more per shirt, like dollar wise, because we were getting like no money on tour. This is our first time in a lot of these places. We're kind of just like our grind was in full effect, and we like had to just figure out different ways to try and get a little more money to like just sustain and like just more gas money and all that. So I think it was a little out of necessity, a little out of creative freedom, and just like I don't know, just trying different stuff out without having to like commit to like a big order of different styles of merch and stuff.
Did you create the Soulbind logo then?
I mean like
Or
we've
kind of renditions of it?
not the one now. We've had a lot throughout time, and I usually will either hire a designer or maybe it's like a manipulation of some font. And I've done some in recent years. I think it's mainly just been other designers, which is cool. I love like having other people's art kind of intertwined in our aesthetic, and I'll like sometimes I'll get this design from someone and I'll like kind of tweak it and make it, you know, however it needs to fit for whatever it's needed for.
Mm.
And that collaboration process is always fun. But yeah, I'm not like I definitely design a lot of the merch and like tour flyers and um things like that, but I always have, a helping hand with other like more talented illustrators and stuff like that.
I gotcha. This year was like a really big year for you guys coming out, Red Sky Mourning. And then not only that, touring wise too, especially in the fall. I know you guys were with End It, Super Heaven, Better Lovers. You had the record release at Rough Trade. Was it
Yeah.
kind of like I presume for the 2022, it wasn't when you were doing like the tour and stuff, it wasn't to that magnitude in terms of like people you're supporting, plus having your own record release at Rough Trade. Like that must be a really cool experience as a band. Like what
Yeah.
was just like your
I've,
thoughts around touring and stuff this year?
I think for the fall we wanted to have like a lot of different eyes on us because of how like varied our sound is. I think we didn't want to like pigeonhole ourselves into like a certain lane or anything. So we kind of tour with like a lot of different genres. Like did the Super Heaven tour, which was, super our lane of things and like it's like alt rocky realm, and then we transitioned right into End It, which is we just did like a proper hardcore tour and kind of like manipulated our set lists to reflect that too. Like I like that aspect of our band where, if we're playing with like lighter bands, maybe we'll play like our lighter songs versus heavier bands are gonna play heavier and or like complete opposite. So
Yeah.
it's nice to fluctuate like that. And then yeah, we did the record release at Rough Trade, which was pretty cool because over the past couple years, I've seen like friends bands play shows there or like they play outside of Rough Trade and like Rockefeller Center. It's pretty cool to have and just like it was the day after the record release, so it was nice to play like some album songs that we hadn't done yet, and I don't know, it was a cool experience. And then we went out with Better Lovers, which is like a little more like metalcore leaning, people are going to there, so we're like all over the place. And then right at the end we did 4 days with Saves the Day and Glassjaw. So we just wanted to have like a hand in every kind of like lane almost that like we want to expand into because we've always toured with a lot of different styles, and I think it benefits and it's more fun to switch up um switch up the lane of thing that we're hitting just so that you don't get stagnant in one specific style of music. And it's nice to have like this varied experience because the goal is to tour with a bigger band that you gain people from that will come to your show next time. So
Hmm.
I think that's like a good thing to have, especially around the album release. And then next year in the spring we're gonna do a proper like record release headlining tour in the US. So I think all that touring is gonna help that because we haven't done a headliner for a while, and we're like curating it to the best of our ability to kind of have like this nice style of bands that reflect like our sound well and like will mesh good together. So it's all part of the process of just gaining as much as you can along the way, especially like around the record, just to generate a lot of buzz and all that.
Do you guys have like a timeline of when that will be released, the new tour?
It's gonna be like mid-January, so from what you were saying, I'm sure
Oh,
this will
this will
be
be
out.
out. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So do
Yeah,
you guys
it's
have like a good I don't whatever you could talk about. I'm not I just like do you guys have like bands already set up and like venues and stuff that you
yeah,
guys are trying to hit?
yeah. It's gonna be in April and May, and it'll be it's with this band Split Chain and Downward and Dream Fatigue, and they're all just friends of ours and kind of mesh well sonically. We all have like, different realms of the same alt rock lens, I think,
Hmm.
and it's kind of cool and kind of we've done one headlining tour in the past that we just like booked DIY and didn't hit the full like US experience. So this would be our first time like headlining on the West Coast and other places too. It's gonna be like about a month, and it's gonna be fun because it is fun doing support tours and playing to like other people's audiences, but it's always a really good time when you're like curating the event, and it's just like a necessary part, I think.
Is there like a place that Soulblind has played that like I don't want to say like weirdly, but like obviously like New York and the tri-state area, like you're gonna get a lot of love compared to like maybe like an Oregon that you haven't been to. Is there like a place that stood out for you guys?
Definitely. We have a lot of fun in Texas all the time, I
Everyone
think.
says Texas.
Yeah. I mean,
Texas shows
I
out apparently.
think it's just a lot of young kids excited, and I think a little bit of it is like they have a strong, you know, amount of bands that come out of Texas as well
Hmm.
in our realm and in hardcore and a lot of different stuff. So I think locally they're pretty tuned into a lot of things. Also, the same way that I get when a West Coast or Texas band comes to New York, you don't get to see it as often, so it's like almost you're a little more obliged to show out and go to the show because you don't know when they'll be back or whatever, you know. I think that's a factor. Also, I don't know, they're just young and turned up. When we go there, we always have like a cool reaction. It's a good spot for sure. And there's other places too, like Chicago we do really well and parts of Florida. But I think it's just like from having strong local scenes and a lot of the times there's a cool band from the area on the bill as well that generates a lot of like extra hype. And I don't know, it's cool to see all these scenes and like how they've grown over time as well. And it's a nice thing to be able to contribute to that.
So like for like you guys in January are going over to UK with Super Heaven and Balancing Composure, putting
Yeah.
out that new album and like being like the opener, like what is like kind of like the expectations like going into it? Like do you guys have like a pretty big following over in Europe too?
Yeah, I mean, we've only been there once before at the end of 2022. Um, and I think like that time it was with Stick to Your Guns and Knock Loose. So I think we're a little odd man out on that bill. I
Hmm.
think this time we're a little more catered into the sound, like it's Super Heaven and Balance and Composure. And those are like not only like two bands that we loved, when they were really popping, like in 2012, like around that time and stuff. But we've also, you know, I think it's a great sonic match, and I think with Super Heaven's, recent boom of further success, I think like the venues are pretty big over there, and they don't, I don't think they've done like proper headlining stuff in a while. I know they played like Outbreak and festivals and stuff, but. Um, so I know the shows I think will do pretty well, especially with our early fall tour with Super Heaven. We also opened that, so I think it's not as much of a factor being like the first band on something because a lot of those kids are just young and hungry for new music, and
Yeah.
they're not like old jaded dudes who are going to show up right before the headliner, you know. Um, so it's nice that they want to include us and have us on there because I think that's our direct lane and will benefit a good amount. I'm hoping.
Yeah, it's crazy like the success that they've had this year with the self-titled record. Like
Yeah,
we saw each other at the Williams Center. They literally what was that before right before their set they put a hole in the floor from people getting so
yeah.
excited.
Yeah, they have a lot of like for a band, like ours that doesn't have like a proper frontman to like generate a lot of, like obviously there's still bands that don't need a standalone frontman to generate a lot of hype, but it is a little harder, I'd say. And then them not having that and still having all these kids going crazy is nice to see. And like those guys have been going hard for a long time. So and we've before Super Evan had their like official comeback. We used to play with Web Wing, Taylor's other band, a lot.
hmm
Jake had another band that we played with, and I don't know. It's nice that we get to be friends and play shows with these guys because not only is it sonically a good match, it's just like some homies at this point. So it's pretty cool.
Do you feel like was that one of your I went because I want to ask you this and that kind of reminded me to ask being the front man but also playing an instrument, do you feel like generation of like I don't want to say like anticipation, but like getting the crowd motivated and moving, was that like one of the biggest things that you noticed in terms of like hardship playing both?
Yeah, I mean, obviously inherently it will be harder. Um, but I've learned like different ways that work for me. Um, I think, it's like I said, it's not impossible. It's just, you got to approach it differently and have like different methods.
hmm
Obviously, like being able to, especially coming from hardcore and seeing it all the time, being able to like put out the mic so that people can sing along or get people a little more motivated because you're a little more animated. That's obviously a plus, but I've seen bands have crazy sets without doing that at all, and they're just just rocking out and having the instrument, or it's a standalone frontman that just stands there and it's still crazy.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what works for you and how you want to approach it. But I've definitely had to learn things along the way for sure.
For Soul Blind, I feel like it's such a unique sound that like it's hard to like genre it so at times. Obviously, being the frontman and guy in Soul Blind, how would you kind of describe your sound to someone that hasn't listened to Soul Blind before?
Um, like I try to keep it just like a general, non-crazy specific, just like hard rock, alt rock, because it is all encompassing of a lot of different genres, especially like throughout our entire discography. Um,
I would say recently there's like a little bit of a grunge sound too to it at
for sure, for
times.
sure. And and then there's the argument of like, oh, grunge was only 4 years in the Pacific Northwest, and it's like, whatever. Like that, so that's why I never like hone in on anything.
Yeah.
More so, just like you could even say rock. If I want to be a little more specific, hard rock. If I want to be a little more alternative, alt metal, like stuff like that. It depends on who I'm describing it to. Like, you know, I'm I'm going to I'm with family over Christmas. Am I gonna say like grunge tinted metallic? Like no, like I'm not doing all that. So like, and even like a random show goer, I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty. But I and also I think when you do that, you kind of if someone hears a buzzword that they don't like, Like maybe they don't like metallic or whatever
Hmm.
you're using. They're not going to check it out, even though song 8 on the record has nothing to do with that sound at all, which is why it's a little limiting to put it in a specific lens because it could turn somebody else off or, spark the light bulb in somebody else and be like, oh, check this out. And they check out the wrong song. Then it's like, oh, well, this isn't what was described to me, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why I just keep it very broad. And I mean, and honestly, it's not wrong either because there's a lot of different sounds and genres throughout, like especially the last two records. So I think a more broad approach is nice and just have people go in a little more open and less like predetermined, you know?
This was your first time putting out a record with Closed Casket, right? Or
Yes.
was this did they approach you, or was it kind of just like time to expand on from where you guys initially were?
Yeah, they reached out just to see what our next plan was, I guess. And we put out our first record on this label called Other People, and we didn't have any contractual things keeping us there, I guess. And it was cool to put the first one out on there, and then we just kind of wanted to expand upon our reach and try Close Casket out, which has been awesome. And they're not like directly where we're from, but we live, an hour or so away from Albany, where we started in Poughkeepsie. So it's more or less upstate New York, which is nice to have like a more almost family appeal where, we have a shit ton of mutuals, even though we hadn't met Justin, the owner,
Hmm.
until like, recent years. But it's nice to have like a home base almost, and also friends bands on the label as well. And I don't know, it's been a cool experience, and everyone's been really nice over there. And I think being among the roster that we are is always like an appeal as well because when I was growing up, there's certain labels that I would just check out whatever is on the label because of their one backing of one band or whatever, and their like taste for things. And I think especially with the new record where we have a little bit of a darker, heavier tint to the songs, I think it works well with that label because they more so they are like a heavy hardcore metal leaning label, but they have expanded in recent years and kind of we I think we fit right in the realm of where they're going. So um, it's nice to be among like all the other bands that are over there. And I remember when I was younger, I used to see like the Closed Casket logo on the back of a shirt, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh, like that's like the Incendiary label or whatever. Like I gotta check out whatever that band is. So it's cool to have, something that I used to see like 10 plus years ago and be a part of it now is nice.
Also, too, I feel like they do a really good job with putting out stuff. Like they're not very like timid in terms of like promotion, and they
Yeah,
seem like they're always putting out new music, and even just like reposting and getting bands that haven't played for a while to tour again. And they seem like a very
yeah,
motivated independent record label, which is cool too.
definitely. And they're just I don't know, I like the quality of everything they put out. They don't like put out things for no reason, and it's like curated in a nice way, which I appreciate and I'm happy to be a part of.
I will say, and I'll leave you off with this. I The Red Sky Mourning album cover threw me for a loop when I first saw it. It's just like a very unique art piece. Did you guys have like an
Yeah.
idea going into that? Or was it kind of just like you had a buddy and you were like, make me something that fits?
So when I do most of our commission stuff, I will either have a loose idea or kind of like an overall vibe, or I'll have a couple references or whatever. But overall, I'm always motivating them to listen to a song or listen to the album and be like, how does this make you feel? Go off that. I
Hmm.
always want like the artist's rendition of whatever loose idea we have. So who did the artwork was Dom Pabon from Final Resting Place, and he's done like a lot of different um, graphics and album art for a lot of bands and stuff, and he's really talented. So we tried having him do it and kind of guided him loosely, but overall was just like, hey, like we like things from this time period, from these kind of bands, kind of just do your interpretation of that. And I think he killed it, and I'm really excited about it. He also just designed our tour flyer for our headlining tour, which is more or less like not a continuation of that art, but in the same realm and kind of like um in this like the same theme of things, which is I'm excited about. And yeah, I don't know, he's really talented, and I think it's nice. I've had people, you know, do different shirt designs for us, and I'll kind of give them the same thing of like, hey, I like these things you've done, or like, how about you do something in this style, but then just like run with it. And I think that's the best way to do things, because if you're like micromanaging and going crazy with like specifics to an
Hmm.
artist, kind of like limits them and what they can bring to the table. And and like, you know, going back to the recording conversation, like if you're just one track minded of like, oh, we want to do exactly this, then what's the point of having some outside source like putting in their input or whatever? You kind of have to like take what they say, and if you don't like it, obviously, you know, you say no at any time, but it is nice to have like an outside person like come in and have their interpretation of things.
I totally agree. And I always like Soulblind's aesthetic, and I know all my friends, they always buy shirts from you guys. You guys always have cool designs. So,
Oh yeah,
but yeah, thank you
thanks.
so much for sending. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on this upcoming tour. Then hopefully you guys can stop by Philly or in that area.
Yeah, hell yeah, we'll be in Philly. I think I'm not sure on the day, but it's definitely in May.
Do you know what
Um,
venue?
yeah, we're going to Yuki Club a
You ever play there?
few times.
It's cool.
It's
It's cool for us.
yeah, I like, not to absolutely trash it, but it's like the layout is strange, I think. It's like
Yeah.
it's so long and
Yeah.
narrow, you know, like I don't know. It's hard if there's not a lot of people there. I feel like people stagger around so much.
Hmm.
Um, other than that, it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think it's cool too. Like it kind of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but it definitely blew up this past like year and a half with uh 4333 act like
Right.
and Sweet Pill kind of promoting it too, which has been cool. But yeah,
Yeah,
guys,
I think we played there for the first time in 2022 or something, and then we played I think we just played there in April, but yeah, we I feel like every time we play in Philly it's at a different spot, but
that's fair.
I'm
We have a lot of
it's a good
venues.
city. It's a good city though. I love playing it.
Well, thank you so much. And guys, down in the link below, I'm gonna link Soulblind's like kind of like link tree. They have a ton of different stuff uh, with vinyl pressing on closed casket, and then like you got a sneak peek, which by then it will be announced their full US tour with Red Sky Mourning. And to my EU friends or my UK friends, go check them out. Till next time, guys. Peace.
Oh yeah.